One. Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Sap and I took an allergy day off the other day because both of us were suffering the effects of a lot of pollen in the air, and I personally felt like crap. I felt like I was underwater the entire day. Fortunately, I'm feeling better. Sap, I hope you are feeling better as well.
Yeah, I mean, I take Zyrtec every morning. Unfortunately, when it's nice out, you want to have the windows open to get fresh air in, and sometimes that fresh air is not the best thing for us to breathe. It's frustrating. One of the remedies is tom yum soup, which is a Thai soup.
You've always told me that. As long as I've known you, you swear by
Yeah,
that.
it works. The only problem is in Winthrop, I can't find a place that has tom yum soup, so I've got to branch out and see where I can get some. And
Or
also,
make your own.
I'll make my own. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I can barely open a can of soup. I don't think Progresso has tom yum soup yet. Maybe I'll, see if they can start putting that in a can, because I'll love that. The other thing too is buffalo wings. Really hot buffalo wings, because it'll just clear up your nasal passages. But yeah, you just have to deal with this. I feel better today. I hope you feel better, because we got a lot to talk about.
Sap, there's a wing shortage right now, which I did not know of until I saw a Buffalo Wild Wings commercial with Rick Ross the other day saying we're now Buffalo Wild Thighs temporarily. You're trying to push chicken thighs on people. Did you know there was a wing shortage?
Well, it does make sense, though, doesn't it, Chick? There's only 2 wings on each chicken. So after a while, you got to start using the other body parts. I like the thighs. I'm a big fan of thighs. I like the breasts. I like the drumsticks.
Supposedly healthier for you, too, the thighs, I guess. I don't know.
That's what I hear. I still like the dark meat. Like when I have Thanksgiving turkey, I like dark meat, which is not as healthy as white meat, but it's got more flavor to it. So, yeah, I mean, if there's a shortage of wings, we'll move on to the next part.
It's a national crisis, Sap.
It is.
The great wing shortage of 2021.
Man, who thought it would get worse than COVID-19?
No, it'll be written about in the history books. This is a dark time for the United States of America with the wing shortage. But it's not a dark time for basketball fans, Sap, as we've been getting treated to some really, really entertaining games. Last night was no exception for the most part, as the Clippers were able to do what they do, which is face a 0-2 deficit and win a game. This is the third time they've, in fact, done that this postseason. They are now down 2 games to 1 to the Phoenix Suns, winning last night 106 to 92. Sap, Paul George really sort of avenged his awful miss of both free throws in the prior game and played outstanding. And the Clippers sort of followed the same methodology of having some random guy step up on a given night. Last night, it was Reggie Jackson and Zubac, the former Laker, who both played outstanding games. And now the Clippers are continuing to follow their model of fall behind and try to rally.
I know Trae Young and Devin Booker, their Q ratings have gone up during this postseason. I don't know of anybody whose Q rating has gone up more than Clippers head coach Ty Lue. 3 straight series, he's been down 0-2. So he's 0-6 in the first 2 games of the 3 series. He's now 9-1 in games 3 through 7, to the point where his players are calling him Belichick, because we know how great a adjuster Bill Belichick is. In 9 Super Bowls as head coach of the Patriots, the Patriots never scored a touchdown in the first quarter, yet they were able to win 6 Super Bowls, because he can make those adjustments in game and, of course, from week to week. Ty Lue's doing a phenomenal job with this Clippers team. Without Kawhi Leonard, their best player, they're still right in there. I mean, they're 1 play away from being up 2-1 in this series. If they just defended that inbounds dunk to DeAndre Ayton, they'd be up 2-1, and even
2 free throws,
or made 2 free throws, or you could even go back to game 1. That was a close game as well. They kept battling back. I think if Kawhi Leonard was healthy, that they would be the clear favorites to win the NBA title, because they were the one of 5 teams that throughout the season we thought had a chance to win the championship, had a better chance than anyone else. Lakers, Clippers, Bucks, Sixers, and Brooklyn Nets. We thought it would come from one of those 5. It still may come from one of those 5, because the Bucks are still alive in the Eastern Conference, and the Clippers are certainly alive in the Western Conference. But Ty Lue, to me, is grown more than any player in this postseason. What he's been able to do without Kawhi Leonard, with Paul George, a player that you have to kind of guide through the process, because he's not exactly the most clutch player in the league. And he's using all these different players in different roles. And there's nights they play a lot. There's other nights they don't play a lot. I mean, your guy, Patrick Beverley, didn't play much in the previous 2 series, especially against Dallas. He was, DNP CD in several of those games. Now he's playing close to 30 minutes and doing a great job against Devin Booker the last 2 games. Reggie Jackson has stepped up. Just Zubac last night, a double-double in the first half. So Ty Lue's pushing all the right buttons. It shows that you can have the 2 great players, Kawhi and Paul George. And again, let's put Kawhi off to the side because I don't think he's playing at all the rest of the year. But then you have all of your role players, and he's just putting them in the right place at the right time. This is a series now because I think Devin Booker, after a phenomenal game 1, had his nose broken in game 2. He's wearing a mask. I think that's in his head at this point. I also think Patrick Beverley is in his head or in his nose at this point because Beverley is a pest out there. We see that. I think he's a dirty player. You like him a lot. But he gets the job done as a defensive player. So I think the Clippers, who probably the most physical team in the league, without being the tallest team in the league, you know what I'm saying? Their guards are really physical. And I think that, this is a series now.
Yeah, this is why I liked them 2 years ago a lot when they were in the bubble and they flamed out, is because I thought that they had a lot of guys that can play defense, a physical defense. And that's what I really liked about them. And they're sort of showing that prowess now. And Devin Booker's scoring numbers have gone game 1, 40, game 2, 20, game 3, 15. He's having a Gary Payton on Michael Jordan sort of, without the Jordan was still playing better than Devin Booker has the past 2 games. But he's having a big effect on Devin Booker. And part of it is all, playing with a broken nose is not easy. You have to breathe through your mouth, which makes you a lot more fatigued. So, it's not all Patrick Beverley, though he did, in fact, break Devin Booker's nose. So I guess maybe it is all Patrick Beverley.
Give him credit for that, right? He
that was a strategy.
By breaking his nose and now covering him while Devin Booker.
I wish the Celtics had employed that with Kyrie Irving in the in the first round, but
that's how Patrick Beverley plays. And look, in the postseason, it still comes down to who can play the best defense, and the Clippers have that calling card. Terrence Mann is another guy who's a really good defender. I know I've heard from, not personally from their scouts, but some of their scouts have said that this guy has the potential to be an elite defender. So if you got Beverley, Mann, Paul George, we know can defend. If Kawhi was out there, you'd have a tremendous amount of defense. Look, when the Bulls
Morris is a very good
Morris
defender.
Is a good defender. Yeah, he was kind of pegged as the LeBron stopper when he was here. Batum's a long, athletic guy. Look, when the Bulls won, especially their second three-peat, that was a defensive first team. I mean, Jordan and Pippen, all-time great defenders. They also had Ron Harper and Dennis Rodman on those teams that were great defenders, very versatile guys as well. And Tony Kukoc was a very long player who could defend. As much as we talk about what Kevin Durant did in that Brooklyn-Milwaukee series, and it was incredible, you still need to play defense at this level. And that's what the Clippers can bring on a given night. Last night in Game 3, Jet, Chris Paul and Devin Booker combined 10 for 40 from the floor, 25%. That's the thing about Phoenix is they're a very efficient offensive team. Well, 10 for 40 is not being efficient.
Yeah, they did not. Those guys did not get the job done at all. Just really poor shooting all around. Booker 1 of 7 from 3. Chris Paul 2 of 7 from 3. And they didn't get to the free throw line as much as they usually did. You think you saw any of the effects of COVID from Chris Paul?
Yeah, I think a little bit in terms of he just looked rusty, and
So is it more sick or just missed games?
Missed games. I think they played at a very slow pace last night for some reason. And if you're playing at a slow pace against the Clippers, now they can set up their defense and get physical with Booker and the rest of the Phoenix Suns. I think they would want to play at a slightly faster pace, which Chris Paul maybe wasn't able to do last night. Cameron Payne got hurt 4 minutes.
Right, I was going to ask you, how much of an impact do you think that had?
That's big because he's a nice change up to Chris Paul. Chris Paul is a maestro out there, right? He's the quarterback that maybe can't move as well as he used to, but he really reads the defense and knows how to make those adjustments at the line of scrimmage. Cam Payne is the type of guy who can just blow by people. He's left-handed. He's lanky. He's kind of awkward going to the basket. Man, even his outside jump shot's kind of ugly looking, but it goes in. He reminds me so much of Johnny Dawkins, who played at Duke, and then with the 76ers had a nice pro career, another lefty. And now we'll see what his status is because he turned that ankle pretty badly. Now that's a really good 3-man rotation that Phoenix has with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Cameron Payne. Now with one guy out, that's going to put more on Chris Paul, who I think is better served playing 32, 34 minutes a night. He is 36 years old. So I think that's going to be a big thing to look for Game 4 is the availability of Cameron Payne and exactly how good he'll be.
Clippers also excellent on the boards last night, 51 rebounds to 43. So a significant margin there, winning the rebound battle, and that typically indicates the winner of the game. So the Clippers, good job there. Especially you mentioned Zubac. I think he did a nice job countering DeAndre Ayton, who we talked a lot about after last game. Ayton was fine last night, 18 points, 9 boards, 9 of 13 from the floor. He just wasn't. They needed him to do a little bit more. He was their leading scorer, but if your leading scorer is 18 points, it's hard to win a game that way.
Yeah, you lose 106-92, and look, if Zubac outplays Ayton, then Phoenix is in trouble because Ayton outplayed the Lakers centers in the first round. He played to a stalemate against Nikola Jokic, the MVP of the league, in the second round. You would think he'll be the better player for the rest of this series. This is why I like Phoenix in Game 4. I don't expect Chris Paul and Devin Booker to shoot 10 of 40 from the floor again, 25%, and I don't expect Zubac to outplay DeAndre Ayton. But it must be a curse on my part, Jet, because every time I sing the plaudits of a player, he gets outplayed. I mean, last podcast, I'm talking about I take DeAndre Ayton over Joel Embiid long term, and I still believe that because he's younger, he's healthier, he's, I think, more coachable. He goes out and has a...
I'd be very embarrassed for you if one day just a 1 day difference and you changed your mind completely.
No, I'm not Kendrick Perkins or... Well, Skip Bayless really sticks to his takes to the point where it's like lunacy.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean, Kendrick will change his opinions a lot, which is fun because we love Perk.
Something's wrong with Skip Bayless.
You think so? You think he's got a couple of screw loose there in the cranium?
Why is he's still tweeting about LeBron rounds later? Yeah. He's not involved. He's writing Lahoo.
Lagon. That's my favorite one. Lagon. Yeah, it's like LeBron's on vacation somewhere.
It's so weird. It's just strange. It's like a Trumpian obsession with LeBron.
Is. That's his brand, though. It's attacking LeBron.
Yeah, but it's gone past that to the point where it looks like he's a crazy person.
It does look like he needs to be locked up at some point. Yeah. So here I am, singing the plaudits of DeAndre Ayton, and he gets outplayed by Zubac. Earlier in the series, I'm like, Devin Booker reminds me a lot of Kobe Bryant, but even more so of Ray Allen. And then the last 2 games, he's put up stinkers. It didn't help that he had his nose broken. That's never an easy thing for a player to recover from. So, we've got a series now. I still think that I give Phoenix the edge. Look, if Kawhi Leonard miraculously came back in this series, look the hell out because they become the favorites to win it all because you add that caliber of player to what they have going now. But most reports are that Kawhi is out for the season.
So is there a player you'd like to compliment today, Sap, to put the mush on?
Yeah, probably Patrick Beverley. Let me say that he's the best defensive guard since Gary Payton. So now he'll go out and get torched in Game 4 because that'll make me feel good. I mean, you love Patrick Beverley. You texted me the other night, I'd like to see Patrick Beverley and Marcus Smart on the Celtics together. I'm like, well, that would be a better defensive backfield than the Patriots have currently. They're so physical.
They'd get a lot of stops and score no points.
Score no points. You'd have like a 68-65 game. It's not aesthetically pleasing to watch.
No.
I mean, Devin Booker is smooth, right? I mean, his jump shot is beautiful to watch. And you got Patrick Beverley, who plays like a lunatic out there. And I guess, you know what, if you don't have the talent.
He's a junkyard dog. I love it.
He really is. But you know what? In the playoffs, that kind of stuff works. Go back to the 04 Pistons. And look, Chauncey Billups more talented than Patrick Beverley, but that Pistons team played with that attitude, and they were able to beat a more talented Lakers team in the finals. I mean, if you're not as good as someone else, the only way to deal with them is to, muck it up a little bit, and that's what Patrick Beverley's done.
Yep. So tonight we have Game 2 of Hawks and Bucks. Sap, we didn't talk about Game 1 because we weren't here yesterday.
We're sneezing.
Just briefly. Obviously, Atlanta. Everybody knows by now won that game 116-113, shocking the hell out of a lot of people and the Bucks. Trae Young was magnificent, 48 points, 11 assists. I think he was responsible for like over 50% of their points one way or another.
72 of the 116 points.
Yeah,
he was responsible for.
Fantastic. And so he was obviously the story, and for Milwaukee, the story was how awful Chris Middleton was, because Giannis did what he had to do, Drew Holiday did what he had to do, and Chris Middleton just could not buy a bucket. So Milwaukee loses that game by 3 points, Sap. And now tonight, the spread on this game is a similar spread to game one, 8.5. So I guess Vegas thinks that game one was a fluke, but Atlanta, as I've said, and you've said too, Sap, playing with the most confidence of any team in the NBA right now, of any team left.
Who's playing with more confidence than Trae Young? I mean, he's having fun out there. He's literally just schooling people, right? I mean, he had a 3-pointer while he was shimmying the other night. Drew Holiday, who's a tremendous perimeter defender, was on him. He faked him to the point where Drew Middleton almost ended up falling into the bench. Bobby Portis was very late coming out to get him, and he was shimmying, and he drills a 3-pointer. He didn't even have that great a night shooting, but he was able to put up 48 points, getting to the line, making those mid-range teardrops that he makes. He kind of reminds me.
He shot okay from the floor. Didn't shoot well from three.
From three, which is scary. I mean, if he hits a couple more threes, we're looking at a guy putting up 55, 56 points to go with 11 assists. He's got a little Tony Parker in his game too, very quick. And Tony Parker would hit those runners, those floaters, but he's a better shooter than Tony Parker.
Yeah, the Tony Parker comparison is interesting because he showed up big in big games as well. Yeah. Sap obviously won a Finals MVP, and was really deadly with those floaters in the lane, as Trae Young is. And it's sort of a lost start, and it really shouldn't be because it's a very effective shot. It's just a very difficult shot to master, and Trae Young has become very, very efficient at it. And when you're fast and you have a nice floater, you become very difficult to stop scoring. I mean, because you could just create enough space to get that shot off with your speed, and if you're hitting it at a high clip, then you're suddenly scoring a lot of points, as Trae Young has done throughout the postseason. 48 is a whopping number, and he certainly looks like he's capable of putting up more points. We've talked about all postseason long how great of a passer he is. He had the 11 assists, 7 rebounds for him too in the last game too. The Hawks were a freaking rebounding machine. They had John Collins with 15 boards. Clint Capella had 19 boards in that game, Sap. I mean, it's just they're a good team. No one expected them to be here, but the roster is pretty well constructed with guys who complement Trae Young's game because they have other guys who can shoot. They have good athletes that he can lob the ball up to. I mean, most of Clint Capella and John Collins' points are coming at the rim because Trae Young is firing pinpoint passes to them for alley-oops. And that's a effective form of offense too. So the Hawks they're legit. They should not win this series. It should be Milwaukee's, but Milwaukee has never been a confident team, and Atlanta is certainly an extremely confident team.
Milwaukee was up 105-98 with 4 minutes left in that game, and Atlanta outscored them 18-8 over the final 4 minutes. It actually came down to one possession, I believe. Milwaukee had a 4-point lead. Atlanta missed a 3. John Collins got the offensive rebound, got it back out. They missed another 3. Capella got that offensive rebound, got it out to Collins, who nailed a 3-pointer, turned a 4-point deficit into a 1-point deficit, and then they were on their way from that point. The Bucks should be a better rebounding team than the Hawks. They weren't the other night. Brook Lopez had 2 rebounds. He's 7 feet tall.
That's no good.
So that was a big difference in that game. You would expect Milwaukee, they're a big physical team, to out-rebound Atlanta. And again, with Milwaukee, it's never pretty. Again, they're not an aesthetically pleasing team to watch either. I mean, Giannis is a bulldozer going to the basket. Chris Middleton is either great or horrible. Drew Holiday offensively is that way as well. And then they're trying to rely on, some of their role players like Pat Connaughton or whoever to make some sort of contribution. So I think Milwaukee still can win this series. I think they'll blow them out tonight, but it's so tough to bet against this Atlanta team. I said it. They remind me of the 1977-78 Seattle Supersonics, which I'm sure anybody listening to this podcast doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about. But the Supersonics that year were 5-17, fired their coach, and made it all the way to the NBA Finals, led by a dynamic backcourt of Dennis Johnson and Gus Williams. and they ended up losing in 7 games to the Washington Bullets in the NBA Finals. Look at what Atlanta's done this year. They were 14-20, fired their head coach, and look what they've done since Nate McMillan took over. They've been arguably the best team in basketball with Nate McMillan as their head coach. So, as you said, Jet, very athletic team. Capella and Collins are more athletic than the people they're facing. They're athletic 4s and 5s. Trae Young just controls the entire game, and they get a bunch of shooters that can contribute, whether it be Gallinari or whoever else. I mean, they're a tough out right now.
Sap, I said this when we previewed this series. Their only ways of winning the series and their advantage in the series was they're more athletic than Milwaukee. So they had to use the athleticism of Collins and Capella, check, in game 1. And they had to knock down their threes. They didn't really shoot threes at a great clip. They were 8 of 32, so 25%. That's not good in game 1. But Milwaukee was worse, 8 of 36. So
why do they take so many threes? Why does Milwaukee take so many threes?
Well,
in the regular
Chris
season,
Middleton took 9, Sap, and he's a good 3-point shooter. He missed all 9 of them.
Well, it gets tougher to shoot threes in the postseason, right? I mean, it's not exactly a hot take. You get to the postseason, things get a little tighter. The defense gets better, and things do get tighter for shooters. It's the same way in baseball. Not as easy to hit in the postseason as it is in the middle of July. It's just the way it works.
You know, we talked a lot as the postseason was approaching, and when it started, like, you know, how much was on Giannis, and, you know, Giannis has to be efficient, and for the most part, he's lived up to everything that you'd want out of him this postseason. He's played well. He hasn't been god-awful from the free throw line. He was 6 of 8 the other night. I mean, that's really good. That's really good for him. It's been Chris Middleton who's been the inconsistent one for Milwaukee and has had some real stinkers of games. I think the surprise in this game, Sap, as he went 6 of 23 from the floor, 0 of 9 from three, is that this game was at home, and you really expect him to play well at home. Right. And he was, I mean, if we like to do the blame pie on this show, I mean, he gets by far the biggest heaping piece of pie in that game.
Yeah, followed by Coach Budenholzer, who was clearly the worst coach remaining. He makes no adjustments.
And Brook Lopez. I mean, those three.
Brook Lopez. Yeah, those three guys should look in the mirror after that game and say, we are to blame for this loss, because Giannis was Giannis. I mean, he plays his ass off. He generally gets 30 and 10 every night. Drew Holiday was outstanding on offense. Good luck trying to cover Trae Young. That's almost an impossible task. But yeah, you're right, Jed. Budenholzer, Brook Lopez, and Chris Middleton, they have to be better. I don't expect Budenholzer to be better. He just can't make proper adjustments. You've got to be better on the pick and roll against Trae Young. You can't drop your defender and leave him wide open from the free throw line, as happened the other night, or let him get into the lane and put up a 10, 12-foot teardrop, which he just nails more than any player I've seen probably since Tony Parker, or alley-oop dunks to Capella or Collins, who are really athletic. So Trae Young just breaks down the entire defense, and the Bucks all of a sudden are scrambling, and now they're trailing from behind in this series.
Coach Jet would suggest a box and one, with the one being a floater. That eliminates the possibility, of alley-oops being so easy to be able to throw, and should get rid of, be able to collapse the lane to stop some floaters more.
Yep.
And the one obviously guards Trae Young. I mean, that's just that as how it goes.
And how about being a little more physical with Trae Young? I mean, if it ends up being Atlanta Clippers in the NBA Finals, which is the one I don't want to see, I want to see Phoenix, Milwaukee, I will guarantee you Patrick Beverley will not back down to Trae Young. Trae Young is going to hit the ground several times in that potential series, because that's the way the Clippers play, and that's the way you kind of have to play, because Trae Young is just too good. You can't guard him straight up. He's going to embarrass you. That's what he's done through this entire postseason, Jet. He's not only putting up great numbers, he's embarrassing these other teams. Atlanta is 6-2 on the road in this postseason, Jet, and they're dismantling probably the 3 best defensive teams in the Eastern Conference, right? The Knicks, followed by Philadelphia, now game 1 against Milwaukee. Those are probably your 3 best defensive teams in the Eastern Conference. He's toying with them.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's been to me the MVP of the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people are saying Devin Booker. Some people are saying Paul George. It's Trae Young. I mean, they shouldn't be here right now. They're here off the strength of his play. He's quickly becoming a star. And I just keep going back to Sap. I think it was like 2, maybe 3 months ago, we did a show where the ESPN ranked their, top 25 under 25, and they had Trae Young at like 15 or 16. Yeah. And you and I were laughing at that, saying that is absurd.
Right.
This is way too low. I think I had him in my top 5. You had him close to that of the 25 under 25. And maybe he saw that and was like, the hell are these guys talking about?
He plays with such confidence, doesn't he? And so much cockiness, which I love. He's maybe 6 feet tall. I mean, the comparisons to Steph Curry are there. He's not the shooter Steph Curry is. Better passer, has a different type of offensive game. Both Steph and Trae Young are very cocky, as I would be if I had that skill set. But he's noticeably smaller than Steph Curry. Steph Curry's 6'3", about 190. He's not a big guy. But standing next to Trae Young, who I think barely is 6 feet tall, you can see the difference. This kid is so much fun to watch.
Yeah, Sap, I'm looking right now. He was ranked 16 on ESPN's 25
Crazy.
under 25, below guys like Michael Porter, Jamal Murray, Brandon Ingram, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, way below Devin Booker, way below Ben Simmons, way below De'Aaron Fox. I mean,
and a lot of these guys are outstanding as well. Now he's getting the opportunity to show that in the postseason. But you know what he's doing? He's stepping up big time. Something Ben Simmons has never done in the postseason. And he's had ample opportunities.
Yeah, exactly, Sep.
It's not like this is his first time. This is This is Trae Young and Devin Booker's first time in the postseason. They're both shining. Ben Simmons is now a veteran of the playoffs, right? They made the postseason 4 straight years. I know he was hurt during the bubble, but this was Ben Simmons' 3rd postseason appearance. He's getting worse, not better.
He has not been good in any of them virtually. This first one, he put up 1 point in a game against the Celtics. He had a 4-point game this year in the postseason. No, he's been terrible in the postseason.
Shot 34% from the free throw line, which set an NBA record for the worst shooting percentage in the postseason with more than 70 attempts. That's a league that had
historically bad in the postseason.
It's way worse than anything Will Chamberlain or Shaquille O'Neal put up. They generally were 50% free throw shooters, which if he had accomplished that in that second round series against Atlanta, they may have won. You're not asking for much for a guy that hit 50%. He was at 34%, Jet.
Horrible, historically horrible. Sap, before we move on to the next topic here, so 8.5, you're going to take the Bucks with that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a easy win tonight. It's tough to bet against Atlanta. The thing about Atlanta that is so scary, if you bet against them, this could be a 17 or 18-point game with like 6 minutes left, and Trae Young's not giving up. And he hits a 3, and Lou Williams can come off the bench and put up 11 points in about 3 minutes. And next thing you know, it's a 5-point game. They're difficult to beat. I mean, they had 2 big comebacks against Philadelphia in the prior series. They're a tough team to take out, but I think Milwaukee needs for their self-confidence to go out and kind of take care of business tonight.
Yeah, of which they have none. They have no self-confidence.
They have none. They're a weird team. They're a strange team. It starts, look, their best player is Giannis, and we both love Giannis, but he doesn't feel like the alpha dog, because again, his game isn't as well-rounded as Durant or LeBron or Steph or Kawhi, those great players. So I think the rest of the team looks at him and says, is he going to take us over the top? Look, he's going to bust his ass out there, but is he good enough to be that guy? I don't think he is. That's why you need more from Middleton and Drew Holiday. And is Middleton really a 2? I don't think so. He's more of a 3.
Yeah,
That's what makes this such a difficult team to follow.
You can look at what Giannis has done in this postseason, look at his averages and stuff like that. I mean,
the numbers are good.
He's ticked his game, even has gone a little bit up from his regular season averages. He's played fantastic. It's just like, you're right, because his game is not the traditional superstar game that you expect.
He is Karl Malone. That's the best comp for Giannis. Karl Malone put up 27 and 11. It seemed like every freaking night. But in big situations, he never really was able to elevate his game.
Yeah, I
Giannis
can see that.
feels the same way because they're limited what they can do.
Yeah, I could see that, Zep. I think that's a good comp. Other than he's a better person than Carmelo.
Oh, much better person. I love Giannis. I mean, God, he's the easiest guy to root for in the league. There's no one out here right now that I'm not personally rooting for. I mean, how can't you root for Trae Young? I mean, that's like having the kid down the street dominating the NBA playoffs.
You're rooting against Kawhi because not personal reasons, but for LeBron related reasons.
Absolutely. It's the only guy that can make this hurt LeBron's legacy if Kawhi comes back and they win a title. What would it say about Kawhi if the Clippers win the title without him? That would be an interesting story.
It would be interesting. I mean, I just don't see how it's possible. But I also didn't think I also picked against the Hawks in the first round. So
yeah, no, it's crazy.
What do I know?
It's been a fun postseason. Most unpredictable postseason in years.
I agree, which is awesome for the sport.
I will
take the Bucks with the win tonight, but I'll take the Hawks with the points.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds
I
fair.
think it's a big margin. Sap, I don't know this off the top of my head. Have the Hawks been blown out yet in the postseason? Because there's typically blowouts.
Think so. Yeah, no, I mean, they were getting blown out in games 4 and 5 of the prior series. And not only did they come back to make it close, they came back to win. They were down 7 with 4 minutes left in game 1. They won 4 out of 5 against the Knicks. There may have been one game against Philly.
They lost bad to Philly twice.
Yeah.
127 to 111 and 118 to 102. Okay, so neither one of those were good loss. I was gonna say, is 8.5 the biggest margin that they would have lost by, but no. So I'll stick with it though, Sap.
That was games 2 and 3 in the Philly series, and after that, Philly was just lucky to survive any games.
They somehow lost confidence after winning big games. Philadelphia.
Another team that's mentally shaky.
Out of that one. All right. Well, we got a couple new coaching hires in the NBA.
Yes.
Sap. The Celtics opened the floodgates the other day, signing Ime Udoka as their next head coach. And now the Indiana Pacers and Dallas Mavericks have followed suit. The Pacers hire old Pacers coach Rick Carlisle to take the new job. So he's back after a lengthy absence where he was in Dallas for a while. I believe he left in 2007.
It was 2007 because he was the Pacers coach during the Malice in the Palace, right?
Yeah. He was they had some very good Pacers teams with Jermaine O'Neal and Ron Artest. Very good, and I still think he's a very good coach. I just think the act wore thin in Dallas. So a good fit for Indiana. He's familiar with the organization, obviously, and is a good coach. So I think a solid hire there. And then Dallas hires Jason Kidd, which I predicted about a week ago, Sap. Yeah. I think that not a lot of people love this hire because he has yet to prove he's a good coach, but he does have a strong relationship with Mark Cuban and the organization, played there twice as a player, won a championship there as a player, and he is the next coach of the Dallas Mavericks. They also hired a new general manager, Nico Harrison, who comes from Nike and I guess has a relationship with a lot of the Nike guys. He's taking over there. But Jason Kidd, the head coach in Dallas.
Yeah, obviously, from what we're hearing is Dirk Nowitzki, the former great Maverick, who as of now is the greatest Maverick ever till Luka surpasses him in 8 to 10 years, I think. He had a very, very strong say in this hiring, that Mark Cuban relied on him as a consultant, and they both love Jason Kidd. I'm assuming that Luka signed off on it and said, sure, this sounds great. Jason Kidd, one of the all-time best point guards, he can obviously help Luka Doncic, we think. So I'm not surprised by that move. And again, Mark Cuban kind of likes to make big splash moves, and Jason Kidd is a big splash move without question. The Indiana hire, Rick Carlisle's been in the league, it seems like forever, as a head coach. And I wonder if Larry Bird has any more pull with the Indiana Pacers, and maybe he had something to do with that, because he was very close with Rick Carlisle, not only when Carlisle coached in Indiana 15 years ago, but when they played together with the Celtics. I mean, you're talking about, at that point, the greatest player in the sport, Larry Bird, and the 11th guy on the Celtics roster, Rick Carlisle. But Larry Bird's best friends on those Celtic teams happen to be like Rick Carlisle and Quinn Buckner. Those are the two guys he hung around the most. Maybe Larry Bird put it in the air of owner Herb Simon that Carlisle, still can coach. Let's bring him back. It's a solid move. 4 years, $29 million. I guess it pays to be a head coach in the NBA these days. But that seems to be just like the old boy move, right? You bring back a guy who was here before, won a championship in Dallas. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and also I think he got fired. I mean, they said he stepped down, but I just think it wasn't working with Luka. The team was still pretty good this year. They started slow, but they really rallied in the second half of the year. I think he's still a damn good coach. So I think it's a good hire for Indiana. And it's an upgrade over Nate Bjorken, who obviously did not work in his 1 year there. And as far as Dallas goes, when we were ranking the coaching vacancy, Sap, we had Dallas as the number one most desirable spot because of Luka Doncic. And this sort of lends credence as to why Jason Kidd very early put the kibosh in that Portland Trailblazers job, saying thanks, but no thanks, because this was the best job available. And he clearly knew that in his back pocket, he was going to get it. I assume. And so that's why he so quickly turned down the Portland job, because frankly, as great as Damian Lillard this is a much better job. Yeah, Luka
Sure.
Doncic is significantly younger, is bigger. Dallas has a long open window to compete for a championship because of how great Luka we expect to continue to be. So for Jason Kidd, I think he looks at it as a tremendous opportunity. But the question is, he's had 2 stops in the NBA as a head coach. He's failed both times. Can he coach?
Yeah, I mean, remember his last year in Milwaukee, he got fired at about a 500 record. They barely made the playoffs and lost in 7 games to the Celtics in the first round. And then they hired Mike Budenholzer, who has not really shown himself to be a great coach in this postseason. But Budenholzer's been successful in Milwaukee during the regular season. Milwaukee, not this year, but the prior 2 years, had the best record in basketball.
Yeah.
Under Budenholzer. I mean, they did add some pieces, and they grew as an organization, and Giannis grew as a player. And Giannis swears by Jason Kidd, so obviously it helps to get along with your superstar player. But yeah, Dallas was the most appealing opening because not only is Luka Doncic the best player of any team, any player on any team of these coaching vacancies, he's also the least likely for a flight risk because he's only 3 years into his career. I mean, Dame Lillard could go into management in Portland and say, I want out, let's trade me. And now you're left with nothing, or you're trying to get something in return for Dame Lillard. So yeah, I mean, it's a good move. We'll see what Jason Kidd does. I mean, so much of this is how you build your staff. Oftentimes the head coach isn't really the X and O's guy. He's got people that handle that. He's more the communicator, the guy who can connect with the young players, especially the great young players like Luka. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
Jason Kidd strikes me as a guy who does not want people to question him on his staff at all. So I'm not sure what the staff will look like. I did read that he's talking to former Maverick JJ Barea of joining the staff. So they have some who also played with he played with Kidd and he played with Luka. So he had a long-standing relationship in the Mavericks organization. So maybe there's like a little bit of a buffer there with Barea. I don't know. I would think it would probably help him to have some established coaches, but he does seem like kind of a dick, Jason Kidd.
Oh, yeah, great player, yeah, but still.
So I don't know what he wants in a coaching staff, but he needs to obviously approach this job differently than he approached his job in Brooklyn and his job in Milwaukee. Because I don't think he'll get another opportunity after this if he flames out there. I mean, 3 is it, and he's lucky to have 3. Honestly, probably because of his reputation as such a great player is why he's getting 3 opportunities. But he knows that, and this is the best opportunity he has to be successful because it's the best player of any of the job openings. And you have a rich owner with deep pockets who's willing to spend, so he's got a very good opportunity to succeed here. But then again, he did in Brooklyn, and he didn't. And he had a good opportunity to succeed in Milwaukee, and he didn't. So we'll see how different he is, having, learned from those, bidding on the Lakers staff the past 2 years, winning a championship as an assistant coach in the Lakers. LeBron really likes him too. I saw LeBron tweeted out, really bummed to lose Jason Kidd. So, we'll see how it works out, but clearly he knew that this job was going to be offered to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken himself out of the Portland running. So we'll see how it works in Dallas. It's certainly an interesting hire. I don't love it because I don't think that he's proven he can coach. But if it makes Luka happy, then I guess it is the right hire.
That's all you need to do is you make the star player happy. I think the Celtics made Tatum, Brown, and to a lesser degree Marcus Smart happy with Ime Udoka. And that's what you do in the NBA is you make sure that your young players are happy with the coach so that you can extend them so that they spend the bulk of their career in your city. I mean, the players are always a flight risk once the third contract comes around, but that's still a ways away for players like Luka, maybe a little less for Tatum and Brown, who came into the league a little bit earlier than Luka. But yeah, this is going to be how much Kidd can get Luka to grow as a player, which I think he's on his way to becoming maybe the best player in the sport. We know he needs to work on the defensive end. On the offensive end, there's not much that he needs to work on. Maybe just be a more consistent shooter, especially at the free throw line. But they've got to get some pieces around him. I mean, he was literally a one-man team in that postseason. See what they can do with Porzingis' contract, if they can move him for some help.
Yeah, I mean they're in a similar situation as the Celtics were with a
Yep.
real albatross of a contract. Other than the fact that Porzingis is still just 25 and still 7'3", which I think
Right.
some team will bite on it. Is easier contract to move than Kemba Walker's
Oh, sure.
contract,
Yeah.
I believe. So we'll see what they do with that. Clearly, that combination of Doncic and Porzingis isn't working, and we'll see what Jason Kidd has to say, and if he'll want some GM say with this new fresh guy from Nike. I don't know what's going on with Dallas, but no matter what, if you have Luka Doncic, you're in good shape. So we'll see how that progresses. And Sap, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow with a new show, a new pod, talking about continue to talk about the postseason, obviously, talking about Kevin Durant feuding with some more people, which seems like an evergreen podcast. We can just say that, and it could be any time of the year. This time it's with Scottie Pippen and Jackie McMullen. Name a person. Next week it'll be with Robert De Niro. I don't know, Sap. It could be with anybody.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
And De Niro could just say, you talking to me? You talking to me? You must be talking to me.
Yeah,
I'm the only one that's here.
Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro next week.
That's his next target. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Or some guy with 47 followers who lives in his mother's basement. I mean, he feuds with everybody. I complimented Kevin Durant on Twitter. And I was hoping he'd get back to me. I mean, maybe he just likes to go at it with people.
Compliments.
He doesn't look at compliments.
No,
because I tweeted out, the most unstoppable offensive force ever. The only player I can think of who's an uber elite scorer and shooter. That's quite a compliment.
Too nice.
And I think in our next podcast we're going to talk about his former coach agreeing with me. I was ahead of the curve saying these nice things about Kevin Durant, but he never interacted with me on Twitter. I was hoping.
You got to be mean if you want his attention.
Well, as a player, he's tough to knock.
All right, Sap. Well, that's going to do it for us. We are the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Find our podcast wherever podcasts are found. You can find all show updates on our Twitters at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer. We will see you tomorrow for a fresh edition of the podcast. See you, everybody.